I'm 103 years old, and I've never swallowed a single pill in my life. Not one. When the doctors looked at my blood work last month, they called in 2 more colleagues just to stare at the numbers. They kept asking me what medications I was on. I told them the truth. None. They didn't believe me. They thought I was confused, maybe losing my mind. But let me tell you something. My mind is sharper than most people half my age, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. My name is Eleanor Ruth Bellamy. I was born in 1923 in a small farmhouse in rural Ohio, the kind of place where the nearest doctor was a 2-hour wagon ride away. We didn't have medicine cabinets full of bottles. We had a garden. We had chickens. We had hard work and early mornings, and a mother who believed that the body knows how to heal itself if you just get out of its way. I remember the winter of 1934. I was 11 years old, and I caught a fever so bad my father thought I was going to die. He sat by my bed for 3 nights straight, pressing cold rags to my forehead and praying under his breath. My mother made me drink bone broth and ginger tea, spoonfuls of honey and apple cider vinegar that burned my throat going down. By the 5th day the fever broke. I woke up weak but alive, and my mother said something I never forgot. She looked at me with those steady grey eyes and said, "Your body fought that battle, not me, not the doctor, your body. Never forget what it's capable of." I never did. Now, I'm not telling you to throw away your prescriptions or ignore your doctor. That's not what this is about. What I'm telling you is that somewhere along the way, we stopped trusting ourselves. We stopped listening to what our bodies are trying to say. And we started believing that every ache, every cough, every bad night of sleep needs a chemical solution. Here's what I've done differently. And I want you to pay close attention because these aren't secrets. They're choices, simple ones, but they require something most people aren't willing to give: consistency. The first thing is movement. I have never stopped moving, not once. Even now at 103, I walk every single day. Not marathons, not gym memberships, just walking. When I was young, I walked to school. When I was married, I walked to the market. When my children were small, I chased them around the yard until my legs ached. When my husband passed, I walked through my grief, one step at a time, around the lake near our home. Movement isn't exercise to me. It's prayer. It's how I process. It's how I stay connected to this body that has carried me for over a century. My neighbor, she's 62, and she drives to her mailbox. Her mailbox is 40 feet from her front door. When I asked her why, she said her knees hurt. I said, "They'll hurt more if you stop using them." She didn't like that. But it's the truth. The body is not meant to be still. Stillness is for the grave. The second thing is what I put in my mouth, and I don't mean diets. I've never been on a diet in my life. What I mean is real food. Food that comes from the ground, not from a factory. My mother grew everything we ate: tomatoes, beans, squash, potatoes. We had eggs from our chickens, milk from the neighbor's cow, bread that my mother baked every Sunday evening for the week ahead. I never tasted a processed meal until I was in my 20s, and I didn't like it. It tasted like nothing, like cardboard with salt. To this day, I cook my own meals, simple things, oatmeal with honey and walnuts, vegetable soup, baked fish with lemon. I eat slowly, I chew, I taste. I don't eat in front of a television or while scrolling through one of those phones everyone is glued to. Eating is a ritual. It deserves your attention. The third thing is rest, real rest. I go to bed when the sun goes down and I wake when it rises. I have done this my entire life. My late husband used to tease me, called me an old hen because I was in bed by 8 o'clock every night. But I outlived him by 23 years, and I believe, truly believe, that sleep is when the body repairs itself. When you deprive yourself of sleep, you're borrowing time from your future self, and eventually that debt comes due. The fourth thing is harder to explain. It's peace, inner peace. And here's the thing, I wasn't always peaceful. When I was younger, I worried constantly about money, about my children, about what people thought of me. I carried anxiety in my chest like a stone. But somewhere in my 60s, I made a decision. I was going to let go of what I couldn't control. I was going to stop rehearsing disasters in my mind. I was going to stop poisoning my body with stress. Stress will kill you faster than any disease. I watched it happen to my sister. She was the worrier in the family. Everything was a crisis. Every minor problem became a catastrophe in her mind. She died at 67, heart attack. The doctor said her arteries were clogged, but I know what really killed her. It was fear, constant, unrelenting fear. I chose differently. I chose to trust. Trust that things would work out, or that I would survive if they didn't. Trust that I had done my best and that my best was enough. The fifth thing is connection. I have never lived alone in my heart. Even after my husband died, even after my children moved far away, I stayed connected to people. To my neighbors, to my church, to the woman at the grocery store who knows my name. Loneliness is a disease too, you know. I've seen it take more lives than cancer. People wither when they're isolated. They lose the will to fight. So I made sure I never let myself disappear. I call my grandchildren every Sunday. I write letters by hand to old friends. I sit on my porch and wave at everyone who walks by. Some of them stop to talk, some don't, but I'm here. I'm visible. I'm part of the world. Last month, when those doctors were staring at my file, one of them finally sat down across from me. He was young, maybe 35. He looked tired, and he said, "Mrs. Bellamy, we see patients half your age with numbers worse than yours. What's your secret?" I laughed. I told him there was no secret, just 100 years of small choices made every single day. Walking instead of sitting, vegetables instead of processed junk, sleep instead of late night worry, peace instead of panic, love instead of isolation. He wrote it all down, but I could see in his eyes that he didn't really believe me. He wanted a pill, a supplement, a miracle shortcut. But there isn't one. There never has been. And here's what I want to say to you. You don't have to be 103 to start. You could start today, right now. You could put down the soda. You could take a walk around the block. You could call someone you love and tell them you were thinking about them. You could go to bed an hour earlier. You could breathe, really breathe. These aren't dramatic changes, they're quiet ones. But quiet changes are the ones that last. I'm not afraid of dying. I've made peace with it. But I am afraid of one thing, that people will hear what I've said and do nothing. That they'll nod their heads and say, "What a nice old lady," and then go right back to destroying their bodies with stress and sugar and sleepless nights. Don't do that, please. Do it for yourself. Do it for the people who love you. Do it for the person you'll be in 30 years, sitting in a doctor's office, hoping for good news. Tell me your story in the comments. I mean it. What's one small change you've made or one you want to make? I read every single comment. At my age, these conversations are precious to me. They remind me I'm not talking into the void. And if this meant something to you, subscribe. Do it for your future self, so that when you're my age, you'll have a library of reminders about how to live well. If you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who's been neglecting themselves, running on empty, thinking they'll deal with their health later, share this with them. Later has a way of becoming never. The body you have right now is the only one you'll ever get. Treat it like the miracle it is, because that's exactly what it is, a miracle. And miracles deserve respect. I'm 103. I've never taken a pill, and I intend to wake up tomorrow and do it all over again. Walk, eat, rest, love, repeat. That's the whole prescription, and it's free.